There's a light.
It's going.
Yeah.
All right, let's test it out.
Morning, Daniel.
Good morning, Wes.
What are we doing today?
Happy Wednesday. This is our inaugural Principles of Change videocast,
Sure.
right?
Yes.
So Wes and I have been talking about podcasts and how do we share some of the stories about school transformation in the district and not just our district. I would think not just, we're in Santa Ana, California. Nationwide.
Across the world.
National, international school transformation brought to you by Daniel and Wes.
Cheers.
And Santa Ana Unified.
That's
Yes,
awesome.
absolutely. So we're testing out our cameras, seeing how this is all going to work. Episode 1. Hopefully it's better than episode 1 Star Wars.
Oh.
You know, that was a bomb.
I don't remember seeing that one. Is that the one
Yeah.
with the Luke and Leia were brother and sister and they kissed?
No,
that's the episode.
Yeah, Luke's like a
4.
little kid.
Oh,
Well, Luke's
right.
not even a little kid. He's not even born. It's his dad, Anakin.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, we are not proving our Star Wars skills.
I did
here.
not study for this.
You're just trying to get us there safely.
I did not know this was going to be on the assessment.
All right. This morning, we're going to Spurgeon Intermediate School. Spurgeon Intermediate School, grades 6, 7, and 8,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And Spurgeon has a little bit of a checkered past, I think.
Checkered.
Yes.
Yes.
What do you know about Spurgeon?
Well, when I came to Santa Ana, I did some Googling, and there were news articles about staff's not happy, student unrest, things like this. But I was told, and part of the reason I came is there's this enormous potential at Pat.
I mean, it's a beautiful campus. It's
Mm-hmm.
a great spot. You know, wonderful kids. Great staff. Lots of potential, like you're talking about. And so, kind of into that setting comes Todd Irving,
Mm-hmm.
who's the principal there now. Actually, went last year. He gave a TED talk, and he was billed as the turnaround principal.
Yeah.
So that's kind of part of his identity. We'll have to ask him about it. I mean, now, when people from out of town come to visit Santa Ana Unified, this is one of the schools that we take them to.
Yep.
And so for me, this setting is really trying to create a space where my hope is that a principal, unlike a formal principals meeting, where people can have a little more access to that internal emotional struggle and those internal narratives that we have around our leadership and our practices and how that fits with our vision and working with people.
Yeah.
Hey Todd, it's Daniel. We're pulling up to Spurgeon now and hoping you still have a little time to drive around with Wes and I and share all your secrets of school leadership. So we're going to be pulling in just a minute. See you soon. Bye.
This is a $high studio right here.
How are you doing, Todd?
Good, pretty good.
Thanks for joining us this morning.
No problem at all.
You're a brave soul to get in the car with the two of us. You're our maiden voyage.
All right, okay.
So Wes and I have been chatting this morning just about what we're trying to accomplish with this little project, and really, I think that being a school leader, being a school principal, is one of the most potentially impactful and important jobs in education.
Mm-hmm.
It's also one that a lot of principals I've heard say things about it feeling lonely, or not being able to share everything that you're experiencing, and so we're trying to get to a point where we're sharing those principal stories and really trying to get into your head a little bit around how you approach the work, what strategy looks like for you, and how you impact student learning. But before we get to all that good stuff, I wanted to start with the question of, first of all, going back. What made you want to get into school administration?
Well, I always knew I wanted to have an impact on kids. I think when I went to high school, my coach had a real big impact on me. But I had an incredible principal when I was at Poly High School, Mr. Ellis. And this guy the impact that he had on all the students, it made me really want to go into education, not necessarily administration, but teaching. And then once I began teaching, I started thinking, wow, I want to have an impact on a whole school and possibly a community and just make a big difference.
Great. So what made you turn to the dark side?
Well, it's funny.
Not fair.
I was a PE teacher in Long Beach, and then my administrator came to me and said, Todd will think you make a pretty good administrator, so why don't you try it? But I was thinking, well, I'm teaching PE, I'm the athletic director, and then I have the swimming pool, period 6 and 7, I haven't made. So I said, if I don't like this, can I go back to being a coach? But what happened right away, I saw that I could have a bigger impact on a larger group of students by being administrator. So what I did right away, I took that assistant principal position and just started thinking in the same way that I would teach my classes, but looking at it as having more of an impact on students, supporting teachers, and expanding to the community.
So it was really the encouragement of somebody else that got you to make the jump.
Correct.
Great. And so now you're at Spurgeon Intermediate at Santa Ana High School. Tell us a little bit about the process that you went through to get that job and why you were interested in it and how did all of that happen. And while you do that, I'm going to try to fix this camera in the back seat.
Okay. Well, I was working at Orange County Department of Education when I saw the article, March 22nd, Santa Ana tries to tackle out of control students at Spurgeon. I saw that article and I knew for a fact, that's my type of school based on my background. So what I did, I just waited for the job opening to become available. I applied. But before I applied, I did all the research I could do about Spurgeon. The school, the staff, the district, the community. And when I went in for my interview, I had a 90-day plan that I presented what I would do the first 90 days to try to transform the school, which included changing the school culture, supporting teachers, getting professional development for 3 years, and expanding to the community.
So let's go back for a minute. So you kind of, it was kind of a given in your story. That's my kind of school.
Right.
That's where I want to be.
Yes.
That is not what most people wake up to when they open the newspaper and they read an article about getting students under control or whatever the narrative may be. That's not a typical reaction. So where does that come from for you?
Well, I grew up in Long Beach on the east side, 14th and Warren, and so it was a pretty tough area. And my parents sent me to a private Christian school for 8 years, so I didn't go to my local school. And so just growing up in a neighborhood, I saw that it was important to have good schools in neighborhoods that people thought weren't good schools. Good neighborhoods. And so for me, my background, when the state took over Compton, I was a principal there in 96. Then I did continuation schools. Then I was principal at East Palo Alto and San Diego. All of these schools are schools in urban communities where no one thought they were going to have any type of success. But my mindset the whole time was, I want to go places where people think it can't happen and create a charter private school feel for people and communities that feel it won't happen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What was as you were coming into that role, what was your understanding of the involvement of staff and students in the recruitment and hiring process?
Well, I read the article about what the teachers felt the students were out of control, they weren't getting supported. And so what I did when I first came, I asked my boss at that time, said, keep everyone in place. Don't move any VPs, counselors, teachers. I think what they've been doing in the past, they've been in a survival mode. What I'm going to do is listen to them, have some meetings with them, and bring in some structure, stability, and calmness and support for them, and I think that we can make the change.
This is your employer at the county, or
no,
here? Once I got here.
Because I think for me coming in, I think they were looking for some stability and someone to come in to support them. So I think it was just right for me based on the experience I've had in the past. And then once you come in and you listen to the teachers, because I had interviews with every single staff member, what's the positive things about Spurgeon? How can I support you? And then what would be the best way that I can really support you to help us move forward? Right. And then I told them one of the things, the way I look at a principal's position, if the school is moving forward, that means we're all working together as a team. If something's not working out, I have to figure out a way to make it work for you.
So when we talk about school turnaround, because that word's been used a lot in terms of Spurgeon, are we talking about like a substantial amount of the school was rehired or replaced, or is this something different, trying to turn around with basically the school intact as it was prior?
I think the first thing that I did, I just wanted to change the mindset. I wanted everyone to know that failure is not an option. We aren't going to play the blame game. In my very first meeting with the staff, I told the staff, I have good news for you. The kids aren't the problem. And they all looked at me like I was crazy. And I thought, okay, I just lost this job. Miss Miller's going to call me in and say, you're gone. But I wanted them to understand that the kids aren't the problem. If the kids came to us perfect, we wouldn't have jobs. But it's our responsibility to look where the kids are at and moving forward. Then what I did is just made sure I gave them plenty of support in their classrooms with their academics and created an environment where kids start taking ownership of their learning. So as we started doing that, the culture started changing. Now for some of the veteran teachers who have been there for a long time period, their attitude was like, well, let's see if this is going to really happen.
Right.
The new teachers who I hired, I wanted to hire new teachers who were from Santa Ana, probably went through the Santa Ana school system, went to Santa Ana College, and went to Cal State Fullerton. If I hire that type of teacher, they understand the realities of what our students are going through. I want them to have passion, high expectations, and be a role model for the kids. So it was kind of hiring the right teachers, but also supporting the veteran teachers. And as they gelled together, it just changed the whole culture of the school.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about project-based learning. That's been a big part of your reform agenda and your transformation strategy. And that's not, at least from my perspective, that's not a typical turnaround approach.
Right.
Right? Like, a lot of times it's, we're going to come in, we're going to exercise a greater amount of control, we're going to clamp down.
Yeah.
Probably both on students and on teachers, like, exercising more control, tighten things up. And, you came in and we're talking about project-based learning and couches and student ownership and, redesigning spaces.
Right.
Talk us a little bit through your strategy behind that, and what's the thinking that goes into those type of structural and pedagogical approaches.
Well, we want to make sure that when coming from high school, I used to wonder why were kids not successful in ninth grade. And coming to middle school, I started having a better understanding. So what I wanted to do is run our middle school just like a high school, as far as creating that type of culture. And so one of the things that we did a lot of research on was project-based learning. And Ivy Tonelli, who is our project-based learning expert in district, I started working with her. And what we started doing is start having conversation with teachers. Who are the early adapters? Who want to do something that's completely different than normal? But what we feel will be the qualities and the characteristics of helping our students be successful. So we start talking about collaboration, communication, critical thinking, creativity. Those are the four things that we really want to focus on, because anywhere that you go as far as a job, that's what you're looking at as far as students being successful. And we want to implement those skills at an early age so that when the kids go to high school, it's not foreign to them. So what we did, we had a group of teachers. We took them on field trips to schools that was already doing project-based learning. We went to High Tech High in San Diego. We went to Wright Middle School in LA, and then we took some other field trips. By doing that, the teachers were able to see schools like Spurgeon in the same type of area that they can be successful. Now what started happening, some of the teachers are saying, we can do this, we can do this. What do we need to do to make it happen? Then what we did, we went through training. We went through a whole training with Buck Institute, and then we did 1 year of coming up with an implementation plan. With the implementation plan, it included every single person on the campus who was going to be involved in the decision-making process. It started with administrators, then the counselors, but the critical part was the teachers who were going to be involved in project-based learning, understanding project-based learning, and having feedback, and then Ivory going in, tweaking it so that they can feel that they were comfortable with it. The summer going into our first year of implementation, what we started doing, we started going to our elementary schools, talking to our incoming sixth graders about project-based learning. This is what we're going to be doing. We're going to prepare you for 21st century learning, and this is something that's totally innovative and something that you won't be doing at other schools. We also talked to the parents about it so the parents would know what we were doing, because a big part of the perception at Spurgeon is that it's a bad school. And my philosophy is the parents have the knowledge of what's going on. I get them on campus and give them a tour, they're going to buy in. And then what's also going to happen, they're going to be my marketing tool, because they're going to go out in the community and talk to other people about what's going on. So what we also did was a summer bridge program that was 4 days, where we had our incoming fifth graders, who were now sixth graders, come in to learn about project-based learning. We also had their parents come in. So we started the whole transformation process, and the teachers and the students, they absolutely love it. As far as changing the way we do school, I don't believe in traditional roles. I don't believe in stand and deliver. I think if we're doing activities where students are engaged, they're communicating with each other, they're working in groups, they're figuring out the problems, that's the way you work in the real world. But then also give them the freedom. We have 254 students at Spurgeon who have A's and B's. They have a pass that says Scholastic Scholar. They can go to their classroom, get the assignment, they have their Chromebook, and they go anywhere on campus and work. So it's just like a college field. Now, the big adjustment, it wasn't the students, it was the teachers. The teacher's like, what do you mean, let them go? I'm like, just let them go. If we have any problems, we got this. And we haven't had any problems at all with the students. As a matter of fact, the students who don't have that freedom, now they want to have that same type of freedom. So now they're working even harder to maintain all A's and B's and take responsibility for their learning. So that's how we start shifting what we were doing at Spurgeon.
Why do you think, you mentioned the term stand and deliver, right? And so for me, there's this whole kind of, I don't know, there's this whole thing around urban schools and students of color and stand and deliver and toughness in the classroom. Where do you think that comes from, and what role does that mentality have in challenging the work that you're trying to do with project-based learning? And part of the reason why I bring this up is that, you know, one of the knocks on project-based learning is that is its tendency in certain places to not bring the academic rigor that you might want to have in other contexts. And I've leveled that criticism in certain contexts as well. But how do you address this issue of rigor, of high engagement, and what is its relationship to this kind of this story about, you know, kids in urban schools and people needing to be tough and you know, really taking control?
Well, I think you're going to get rigor with project-based learning, because with project-based learning, you're still incorporating the standards. There's 8 components of project-based learning, and there's a lot of professional development. So I think what you're doing with project-based learning, you're having a lot more tools in your toolbox to reach high standards instead of the traditional stand and deliver. I think when we talk about urban schools, we feel we have to control kids. And the best way to control kids is by having them sit down in their seat and we tell them what to do. And in my own personal experience, I think That's the last thing we can do with kids, because kids have freedom of expression. Every kid learns a different way. And one of the things I tell students at schools like Spurgeon, you have so much going for you. The fact you're bilingual, you live in a tough neighborhood, you can navigate the community, that's a skill within itself. Instead of looking at it as something as being a downer, look at it as being positive. So therefore, now when we talk about project-based learning, with project-based learning, what you're doing, you have every week or every 2 weeks, you have points in the project where you have to make progress. So it's similar to if you were doing traditional teaching in the classroom, you're doing your lecturing and you're doing a test at the end of the week. With project-based learning, it's more involvement with the students and you have checking points, but then the great thing about it is at the end, the students are doing a presentation and they've done they have ownership of it, and they delve deeper into the project.
So, Todd, you're a person that I think exudes a lot of confidence. At least that's my kind of my perspective. You exude a lot of confidence, seem to have clarity of vision in the direction that you wanted to go. Can you talk a little bit about your own self-doubts? How do you manage that as a school leader? Because I imagine you make leadership moves where you're hoping something works,
Right.
but sometimes you don't know. Can you talk a little bit about how you manage that sense of self-doubt at times?
Coming to middle school, I was very nervous and doubtful because I've always done high school. And so I just thought maybe my approach won't work with these little kids. So I was super nervous I was excited about knowing my craft, but would it be successful at the middle school? So for me, it's just consistently trying to make adjustments and learn. One of the first things I did when I came to Santa Ana, first person I had a conversation with was Eddie Bustamante, who I think is an incredible principal, and ask him some things about middle school. That really helped. The self-doubt that I have sometimes is how fast people will move and will they really buy into the vision. And so you're always having that self-doubt. Just recently, we voted on whether or not we would have the block schedule next year. I thought we were ready to go to the block schedule next year because we have it in 6th grade with the project-based learning. I thought it was only logical that we would do it in 7th grade because we're implementing 7th grade next year, and we voted it down. And so
The teachers voted
the
it
teachers
down.
voted it down. So I was a little down. I was depressed. I was like, why didn't it pass? Is this something I didn't do, or did I just assume that this would happen? But then a couple of days later, I just really thought that what will happen once the 7th grade teachers start doing project-based learning, they will see the realities that they need more time. And now with 3/4 of the school doing project-based learning, we can vote for it again next year, but then also I will have the staff have more input.
Right.
So when I have doubt, what I try to do is reflect and see, was it just me assuming things and taking it for granted that it would happen? And then it's reflecting and trying to come up with another plan.
Right. Yeah, I like that idea that you're constantly engaged in this cycle of reflection on action and then developing new strategy or developing new actions and new leadership interventions or to try to align to your strategy so that you can move things to meet your vision.
But I also think when you're talking about moving the school forward, I can say working in all the districts I've been in, Santa Ana has been incredible. I can start off with Todd and the guys at facilities. Incredible job with the facilities, what they've done. As far as the bosses that I've had, Dr. Haglin, Don Miller, they've given me the freedom to go in and do what I need to do to move the school forward. What I like about it, you feel the pressure, but you have the freedom and you need to get results. And then when you look at the curriculum instruction aspect of it, with Dr. Rodriguez, understanding her philosophy coming from elementary school and how you can implement those best practices in the middle and high school. I watched her interrogate sixth graders and learned her interrogation process, delving into really understanding the students know what they're doing. And so I think when you look at that, it's the whole district that gives me support. And I tell people all the time, it's the whole district, because every time I've needed any type of support, I was able to receive the support, even if it was just thinking of something really out the box. I remember Dr. Haglins would say, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And when he says, "Are you sure you want to do this?"
That can be interpreted in different ways.
It makes me think, wow, am I sure I do want to do this? And then I am sure,
right?
And it works, and he's supportive.
And that's where that confidence comes in.
Exactly.
But let's be frank, not all principals probably have that same degree of freedom. Right. Get based on their experience and different things. What advice or what thoughts do you have for those who maybe are working under more restrictive conditions?
Well, I think that when you think about your school, you think about the big responsibility that you have. You have a responsibility that you're working with someone else's most prized possession in their kids. So every single decision that you make every day has to be what's best for kids, that's preparing them to be successful in life. And so when we think about helping kids be successful in life, we're thinking about academics, we're thinking about social emotional, we're thinking about them having the soft skills that they can be successful for any type of job that they have. So you have to think about what you would want as a parent. I have 5 kids, so everything that I would want to happen for my son or daughters, I try to incorporate that being a principal here at Spurgeon.
Great. Well, Todd, we're back at school. Reality setting back in.
I know, man. Let's ride some more.
How many kids are waiting? How many kids are waiting for you?
About 957.
957 kids are glad you're back on campus. So, thanks for taking the time to chat with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Todd.
Okay.
Always a pleasure.
This is pretty cool. I like this. Man, it's like therapy.